the smell of death exists, and I'm going to tell you why. My name is Alfredo, and I've been working as a taco vendor for over 11 years. I get up early, prep the meat, the salsa, the limes, and set up shop on my usual corner in a neighborhood in central Mexico. It's not the best job, there's a lot of competition, but it's fed me all these 11 years, and over time, you even grow fond of the smell of the meat, of everything really. But there's something I'm going to tell you, something that was traumatic for me. A few years back, out of nowhere, I started noticing something that genuinely changed the way I see life. It all started with my grandfather. He was old, seemed strong, held himself steady, but suddenly he got sick. And shortly before he passed, I noticed something strange about him, a smell. It was like a mix of dampness, iron, ashes, something I can't quite describe. A stale scent, but not from age, from existence. I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe I was exaggerating, since my grandpa wasn't showering anymore. A month later, he passed away. And that's when it all began. An elderly customer named Martin, who came almost daily for his tacos, he started smelling the same way out of nowhere. Not like any old man, not sweat, not dirty clothes. It was that same odor, the exact smell I'd noticed on my grandfather. And days later, just like that, he passed away too. That's when I started getting freaked out. Over time, I tried to forget it. Maybe it was just a coincidence, nothing more. But it didn't stop there. Years later, it happened again. This time with a lady named Coco. She wasn't that old, maybe 65, seemed strong, sharp, well put together. But then one ordinary day, she started to smell. It was the same scent. She'd show up, and that smell was stronger than the tacos. And apparently, only I could detect it. A few days later, I found out she had died too. A heart attack. And that's when fear sank all the way into my bones, because I think it wasn't just luck. I knew it. That scent announced death. The worst came later, when that smell began to come from someone I couldn't bear to lose. My dad. He was already retired, had worked many years as a cop, and was now living peacefully, watching TV, watering the plants, playing with his grandkids. But suddenly, there it was, that stench. I could smell it on his clothes, on his skin, even when he hugged me. At first, I wanted to ignore it. I thought it was just my paranoia. But no, it was real. I refused to just stand by. And since you cling to anything when you're scared, I decided to take him to a medium, someone who supposedly had the gift of clairvoyance. She could see the future. She scheduled us at her house on a Wednesday at 11 at night. She wanted to start exactly at midnight. Said that was the hour when the dead spoke most clearly. The house was old. Everything smelled of alcohol and dried herbs. We entered a small room, barely lit by votive candles. She sat us at a round wooden table and started rolling some large dice with strange symbols on them. After a while, she began to speak. She told my dad things no one else knew. Details about his childhood, names of coworkers, even things that had happened during operations when he was a cop. And then she dropped it. Death is already looking for you, Don Julian, and it comes hungry. After that, she said she was going to summon a spirit that would speak to us through her body, a soul that could warn us of what was coming. When she began the ritual, the room slowly turned ice cold. I mean, genuinely freezing, like someone had opened a door to winter. The medium started murmuring things, and suddenly her face changed. I don't know how to explain it, but her jaw became more pronounced, her nose coarser. Even her shadow on the wall looked like a man's. He, or she, opened its eyes, and they weren't the same. Its gaze was defiant, heavy, and its voice, his voice was like a man's, a smoker's voice, raspy and hoarse. And that thing spoke. Julian Herrera Mendoza, it said, even though no one had ever spoken his full name during that session. Do not accept the woman's invitation. Death is traveling with you on that trip. Then that woman fell backward off her chair. And seconds later, the medium woke up as if nothing had happened. She didn't remember what she had said and told us not to tell her what that spirit had revealed. We paid, left in silence, and then the unthinkable happened. 2 days later, his sister, my aunt, invited him on a trip to Cancun by van, out of the blue. She wanted him to come with her and some friends. My dad had wanted to see the ocean for years. For a moment, I thought there was no way to convince him not to go. But something in him, something in his instinct, made him say no. And it was the best decision of his life. That same weekend, on the highway heading southwest, a trailer lost its brakes and slammed into the van they were traveling in. It rolled over. Everyone ended up in the hospital, injured seriously, but alive. My dad, that weekend, dodged death by a thread. And from that day on, he stopped smelling that way. Coincidence? Or is that what death smells like? What do you think? What a story. And even though it wasn't a tale of ghosts or apparitions, believe me, it was macabre reading it for the first time. But now, let's move on to the next story. And let's travel for a moment to Rio Frio. Ready? Let's begin. I work as a taco vendor in Rio Frio. My shift is always tough, but the heaviest part isn't the work, it's the trip back. Every night when I close up the taqueria, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning, I grab the truck with my assistant, Chaparrito, that's what we call him, and we head back to Puebla. It's a long road, but we know it by heart. That night, that particular Sunday, felt like any other early morning. We'd sold well, and all I could think about was getting home, taking a shower, and sleeping. That early morning, I was driving easy, about 50 miles per hour on the highway. It was pretty deserted, and while I was chatting with Chaparrito, I saw something up ahead, right on the shoulder of the road. It was a woman. She didn't look like a ghost. No, she seemed real. Tan skin, short black hair, simple clothes. But there was something off. She was barefoot. And above all, she looked terrified. Don't stop, man, Chaparrito whispered, almost under his breath. It's a trap. They'll rob us. I thought the same thing. The news is full of stories like that. But something inside me pulled at me. I thought of my mom, my sisters, my aunts, my cousins. What if one of them were alone, in the middle of nowhere, begging for help? So I slowed down and pulled over. I rolled down the window and asked if she was okay. In a shaky voice, she told me her car had flipped and gone off the road into a ravine. She pointed toward a dark spot on the other side of the highway, where nothing was visible. Please, take me to the nearest town, she begged, almost in tears. She got into the truck and sat in the back, right next to Chaparrito. In the rearview mirror, I could see she was nervous, her gaze lost, like she was seeing things we couldn't. I asked her what happened, and she said something suddenly crossed the road. She said something forced her to jerk the wheel and lose control. I glanced in the mirror again and noticed she was gripping the seat. She kept telling me not to drive so fast, and she said that thing was still out there. I didn't understand what she meant, but inside, my stomach was already in knots. And then, kilometers ahead, it happened. Out of nowhere, like they materialized out of thin air, 2 children dressed in white appeared in the middle of the highway. I didn't have time to brake. The impact was sharp, brutal. It felt like something slammed into the hood and then passed over the roof. The truck swerved, skidded a few yards until I managed to stop it, my heart racing 1,000 miles an hour. The woman we'd picked up started crying. "Don't get out. Please, sir, don't get out," she said. That's what I saw. But it was too late. I ran out to see what had happened, scanning the asphalt for those kids. There was nothing. No one. The highway is well lit. There was no trace of them. Not a single drop of anything. Not a shoe, no moans, no crying. Nothing. Like they'd never been there at all. I walked back to the truck, legs shaking. Chaparrita was pale, staring straight ahead without a word. I got back in, asking if they were okay. And then I realized something. "The girl?" he said, turning to me with a face full of terror. "She wasn't with you?" I said no, that she'd stayed inside the truck, right next to him. I got out again, thinking maybe she'd stepped out. I checked the back of the truck, looked around, shouted. Nothing. She'd vanished too. The highway was empty. I hadn't moved more than a few feet. There was no way. I got back behind the wheel, drove a little ways, and then Chaparrito said something I'll never forget. "I swear I didn't hear her get out. I was watching her out of the corner of my eye. I felt her there. But then, suddenly, she just wasn't. I thought I hallucinated it from the shock. I stuck my head out the window, thinking she was out there with you. But I didn't see her. She was gone. That made me shake with a fear I'd never felt before. We drove the rest of the way to Puebla without saying a single word. The silence in the truck was so heavy, it was frightening. No noise, no laughter, just a knot in my stomach and the sound of the engine. I was sweating cold. Years have passed since that night. We still work in Rio Frio. I still make the same drive every early morning. I don't have a choice. But I've never picked up another soul on that highway. What do you think of that story, audience? Would you stop to help someone on the road in the middle of the night? Let me know in the comments. Now, how about I take you back to downtown Mexico City, where Odilon has this story to share. I'm 52 years old, and my name is Odilon. Since my 20s, I've done the same thing. Make tacos, suadero, al pastor, whatever. I always liked the grind of the street. I didn't like studying or working somewhere with bosses. And even though I don't have the same strength I used to, I'm still standing. And like they say, if you don't work, you don't eat. But I'm going to tell you something else that marked my life. A few years ago, I rented a spot in Colonia Doctores. It was cheap, pretty central, and had enough space to set up the trompo for al pastor and some stainless steel tables inside and out. The only problem was that place had something that, from the very beginning, never let me feel completely at ease. The first few days, were fine. Busy, good flow of people. But at night, after 1 in the morning, weird things started happening in the shop. The power wouldn't go out, no, but you could clearly hear someone flipping the light switch from inside the place. It was loud and clear, and the lamps, even though they stayed on, would flicker, like they couldn't decide whether to keep shining or go out completely. At first, I thought it was old wiring or a short circuit. But when I started noticing it always happened right when I was alone, after 1 in the morning, something told me it wasn't the electricity. It was something else. Like I always say, I'm more afraid of the living than the dead. So I didn't get scared. Annoyed, sure, but not scared. And if that wasn't unsettling enough, and in a way, terrifying, one early morning around 1:30, I was already closing up. I was outside on the sidewalk where we fry the meat, taking down the al pastor trompo, and from there, I had a clear view inside the shop, especially towards the bathroom in the back. I was alone, no customers, nothing. And that's when I heard a sharp thud. It sounded like 2 buckets I kept inside the bathroom had fallen over. I stopped, looked up to see what had happened, but I didn't see anything until I turned my attention back to the trompo. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something peeking out from the bathroom wall. It was a woman. I froze, turned to look directly, and she quickly hid again. But I caught a glimpse. Her eyes were completely black. Her skin was white, really white, like plaster. I also remember her nails, long, easily 4 inches, and her hair, jet black, straight, hanging over the front of her face. I saw her slip behind the wall. That was the first time I saw her. I won't lie. I got a little scared, but I also got angry, even more so. I stormed into the shop, yelling, "This place is already taken. Get out! You're not going to scare me here." I threw the door open, and everything was in order. No one was there, and the buckets weren't even knocked over. The days that followed were the same. But now, it wasn't just the light switch. Several times a week, in the early morning, I'd see that woman from the corner of my eye heading into the bathroom. Sometimes I'd see her walk. Other times, she didn't walk so much as glide. And more than once, I felt her behind me. I didn't hear her. She never spoke, just the presence. I'd just tell her, yell at her to leave, to stop bothering me. Months went by, and once the regulars got to know me, and I trusted them, a young woman, she must have been in her 20s, always came by, said something that stuck with me. She placed her order, and while I was prepping it, she asked from her table, "Hey, mister, haven't you ever been haunted here? Nothing ever appears to you?" In a joking tone, I gave her my usual line, "I'm more afraid of the living than the dead." She smiled, but then got serious. "They say a woman died here many years ago," she said. "A witch who lived here before this was a business. According to local legend, she used her gift to scam people, read cards, sell cleansings. But it was all fake, and when they found out she was a fraud, they lynched her. Right here." "Right here?" I asked, a chill running down my spine. "Yes, sir. In this very spot, when it was still that woman's room." I went quiet. Then I told her that, yeah, I did see shadows pass by in the early mornings, and that sometimes they messed with the lights. But it wasn't anything serious. She got freaked out. I stayed in that place for almost 3 years. 3 years where that woman would appear in the early mornings. I didn't really feel fear. Mostly, I felt sadness, knowing how she ended up, and that she's still paying for her mistake, her soul wandering that place. She never hurt me. Over time, I stopped seeing her as some evil entity. She was more like a poor, grieving soul, a woman hiding from the living, peeking out from the darkness, trapped. Even now, I sometimes think about her and wonder if she'll ever find peace.